Hello everyone, it's Foo here, and today I want to talk about Archeops. This is a really awesome Pokemon that is trying so hard to stay in the air, but also trying so hard to be a good Pokemon because in Pokemon Sword and Shield, it's received some really neat buffs that have made it a much better Pokemon, and I really think that it's not being used as much as it should be. So let's explore why Archeops is so much better now. Archeops is a rock flying type Pokemon with an amazing attack stat, one of the highest in the game, as well as a really decent 110 speed stat, and also a usable base 112 special attack stat, making it a relatively fast Pokemon that can deal a lot of damage. It's pretty frail and weak to a lot of types, so you have to be very careful. It's pretty much a glass cannon, but its offensive power can't be understated. However, the big drawback is that its ability Defeatist means that when its HP drops below half, its attack and special attack stats are halved, which is really bad, and it makes it super weak. So you have to be very careful with Archeops' health, and actually in previous generations this has been much more of a handicap than it is in this generation for a number of reasons, which I'll explain why now. So let's get into some of the buffs that it's received that make this Pokemon a ton better. First off, a really big one for Archeops is that it now has access to the move Dual Wing Beat. In Isle of Armor, we've got some move tutors, and Dual Wing Beat is the flying type move that can now be taught. It's a really good move. It hits twice, base 40 power for each hit, so it's base 80 power, which is relatively good, especially when you consider that Archeops didn't have access to a great flying type move prior to this. It had Fly, which is not reliable in the competitive sense because it locks you in for 2 turns, and it means that your opponent can maybe switch into a Pokemon that will resist that attack and then deal some damage to Archeops, which obviously is not what you want when it's so frail and has the Defeatist ability. It also has access to Acrobatics, and actually you did see Acrobatics used quite a lot with Archeops. Acrobatics has a relatively low base power, but it doubles in power if you don't hold an item. And you quite frequently see Archeops sets not holding an item just so that they have this very powerful Acrobatics move, which even without a boosting item or anything like that, does a ton of damage just because Archeops' attack stat is so high and Acrobatics becomes a very powerful move. The issue with this is that your other moves don't get boosted in power because you can't hold any item when you're running Acrobatics, so that's not ideal. Now you have Dual Wing Beat, that's great because Archeops can now hold an item while still having a relatively reliable flying type move, and that is a huge benefit. It means that choice band Archeops sets are now viable because though your Dual Wing Beat with a choice band is only slightly more powerful than Acrobatics, it means that all of your other attacks will be a lot stronger because of that choice band boost. So you'll have access to choice band Stone Edge, choice band U-Turn, choice band Earthquake, which are all great move options for Archeops, while still retaining that really strong flying type move. There are also other items that Archeops really likes holding, and I'll talk about one of those right now because another buff, which isn't a direct buff to Archeops, a lot of Pokemon have benefited from this. It's the introduction of heavy duty boots, but Archeops disproportionately benefits. It appreciates this item more so than most other Pokemon because what it does is it protects Archeops from taking entry hazard damage. And in singles, when you've got Stealth Rocks everywhere, being immune to that damage is huge for Archeops. It's usually weak to Stealth Rock and would take 25% of its HP. It means you can only switch in twice before getting into the Defeatist range, and that basically makes Archeops completely dead weight. So being able to ignore that damage and switch in multiple times is so important, especially for a relatively fast revenge killer like Archeops. It really performs that role very well, apart from when Stealth Rock are on the field. And obviously comboing with the Dual Wing Beat, you can now hold an item, so holding the heavy duty boots is fantastic. And another really important point to note is that Archeops generally does like to come in, get a KO, and then switch out again so that it doesn't have those bad matchups or can avoid any damage from priority moves, for example. And it does have U-turn, so obviously that's another incentive to keep switching Archeops in and out. And heavy duty boots is so important for this Pokemon, so I do think that it's worth noting that even though it's not a direct buff to Archeops, Archeops benefits immensely because of its Defeatist ability. The next buff that I want to talk about is a direct buff to Archeops, and that is another Isle of Armor tutor move, which is Meteor Beam. This is a special rock type move, And what it does is you charge the first turn, you get a special attack boost, and then the second turn you attack with a very powerful rock type attack. This is very, very nice for Archeops because it does have a usable special attack stat. It actually has amazing special coverage, but it's never really had a strong special rock type move to use. So you only had Ancient Power previously, you didn't have Power Gem. And having Meteor Beam now, you can actually hold a Power Herb and avoid that charging turn and have this nuke of a rock type move, which I think is so cool, while boosting your special attack and then being able to go for your coverage moves. It gets really cool stuff like Earth Power and Heat Wave, things that the opponent probably won't expect Archeops to have, especially seeing as though Archeops is generally seen as a physical attacker, although it does have a good special attack stat. Its physical attack stat is a lot higher. But with this move now, you get the special attack boost and you get a powerful attack. I really think that Meteor Beam sets for Archeops will be viable. Linked to that buff is another buff that is huge for special Archeops sets, because Archeops never had a good special flying type move. And now, though it doesn't get Hurricane, which became a TR in this generation, it does get Air Slash, which is kind of crazy that Archeops didn't have Air Slash previously. It now does. And that's such a great thing for Archeops, because now you've got Meteor Beam and Air Slash. You have two great stab options on the special side, and you have that fantastic special coverage in Earth Power, Heat Wave, Dragon Pulse, all sorts of weird things that the opponent won't see coming. So I do think that special sets are so much more viable now. You could even consider doing some mixed sets, but I really do think that this is fantastic, especially considering that in this generation, in the generation of Dynamax, having those flying type moves is even more important because they turn into Max Airstream, and Max Airstream boosts your speed. So you could go for a Meteor Beam, get an easy early KO because you boost your special attack and you have this very powerful Meteor Beam attack coming from that. And then you can Dynamax and just start boosting your speed with Max Airstreams. And I think that this special Archeops set could be very potent. So I do love to see that, and I think that that is a really huge boost. Those two in combination are fantastic. The last buff that I want to talk about for Archeops, again, isn't a direct buff to Archeops, but more of a new addition in Pokemon Sword and Shield that disproportionately affects Archeops. And that is going to be the introduction of the Neutralising Gas ability for Wheezing. Now, a lot of people speculated when this ability was first announced that a number of Pokemon would benefit, and generally the memes flying around at the time were of Wheezing with Slacking, Regigigas, and also Archeops. What Neutralising Gas does is it neutralizes the ability of all Pokemon on the field. So the three examples that I just gave are all Pokemon with bad abilities that bring them down. Regigigas has the slow start ability, which makes it bad from the beginning of the battle and it has to warm up before it becomes good. Slacking has the Truant ability, which means that it doesn't attack every other turn. And Archeops has its Defeatist ability, which we've described previously. I think that the other two definitely benefit from Neutralising Gas's presence more than Archeops, because Archeops' ability Defeatist, it's when you're under half HP, you lose your attack. The issue is that Archeops is quite frail, and if it's taking any kind of damage, it could well just faint. So you have to be really careful about Archeops' HP. But if you want to Dynamax Archeops in doubles battles, I really think that that's where this combo of Neutralising Gas and Defeatist could become useful, because having a doubled HP pool for Archeops does mean that it can take at least one attack and fire back. The issue is after one attack you're probably under half HP, so you want to be able to have that Neutralising Gas next to Archeops to be able to still fire off your max moves with its full attack stat. And max moves coming from an Archeops will hurt. This Pokemon has such a high attack stat and max moves become such high base power that it's really a very, very strong Pokemon when Dynamaxed. And if you have the Neutralising Gas, then you don't have to worry about the Defeatist ability. I would add a caveat here that I think that Archeops probably does need quite a lot of team support regardless of its Defeatist ability, and being able to build a team with the support Archeops need as well as a Wheezing with Neutralising Gas is probably not easy, but I think it can be done, and it's just great that it's an option there for Archeops to use. So With all of those things put together, I think Archeops is a much more interesting Pokemon this generation, just because you can build it in so many different ways. You can have that fast revenge killer that it has always been, but now you can run an item on it. It doesn't have to rely on acrobatics because it's got dual wing beats, so you can run a choice band set. It means that you can run switcheroo, which has never really been an option before. It did learn switcheroo, but you almost always didn't run an item. So now you can run a choice band and run switcheroo Archeops, which is very interesting. You can run heavy duty boots to allow you to pivot much easier, which is really fantastic. And then you've got the special options as well, which again previously weren't really an option because you didn't have good stab moves, which are pretty much vital for any attacking Pokemon. So all of this adds up to a really interesting package, and I think that more people should try out Archeops because it's got a lot of potential there. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider leaving a like and subscribing for more content. I don't have a regular upload schedule, so consider dinging the bell to make sure that you don't miss out on any videos. And also follow me on Twitter at SJA900. All that's left to be said is I've been Foo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.